Watch Jefferson climbs the ladder. Oh my goodness! Come
on! What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of UFC Fight Night, talking the Saturday, July 15th fights. And coming off an awesome card last week. This one, I think it's safe to say, not quite as good as the card we had last week. But we are back here with the full four-man booth, breaking down all 13 fights for you guys tonight. And we got to go first to the official newest member of the RPS team, Mr. Madlab himself, coming off pretty good performance last week, called the big Dan Hooker upset. We can talk maybe a little bit about that fight and the card overall last Saturday before we dive into this one. Madlab, welcome, and how you doing on this Saturday morning?
What's up, guys? Awesome. Thanks for having me again. Super psyched to be a part of the team. Yeah, man, last week was an awesome card. I mean, usually these big cards, bro, like sometimes they don't live up to the hype. This one over-lived up to it, man. So coming back off the back of that card, it's like very flaccid this week. My penis is very flaccid.
It's a rough one this week, but still 100K up top to first in the big DraftKings competition. So we'll try to get that money. Let me ask you one question before we move on, Madlab. Have you ever seen someone take a clean head kick like Dan Hooker did, break his orbital bone? I assume clean broke it on that kick, and just essentially continue fighting like nothing's going on. I mean, Jalen Turner's not throwing, some softy pillow head kick up there either, obviously breaking the orbital bone. So have you ever seen that before, where someone has taken that clean of a shot and just kept on going?
That was pretty clean, but you know what the funny thing was, is as soon as he landed that kick, like, when your first reaction is, oh, like everyone's like, as soon as he landed that kick, I said to Anthony, I go, bro, he's winning the fight. When he took that kick like that, I said he's winning the fight. I said, watch my words now. He's winning this fight.
It's got to be somewhat demoralizing for Turner to land like the cleanest, hardest shot that you can possibly land, and the other guy's still standing there in front of you. So I don't doubt that. But that was a fantastic fight. There were certainly a lot of them. JSU, how did your last fight Saturday go, and how you doing this morning?
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, we were all over a bunch of dogs. I mean, Robbie Lawler, Pantoja, I was super high on that. We had a really good call. Obviously, Dan Hooker was a great call by Madlab. I had some of Dan Hooker just because he was pretty confident in that dog. But I mean, I thought we did a good job last week. It was an awesome card, and we go from that card. I mean, all cards can't be that card. That card was literally insane. That was one of the best cards we'll probably see all year, maybe the best card we've seen all year. Absolute dominant performance, too, by Volk. I mean, this dude is absolutely insane. Like, we need to start giving – I know he lost to Islam, but he takes all these fights. He doesn't care. He finds a way. He doesn't care where the fight goes to, what he has to do to win. He just wins. He's a winner. And I love watching him fight, too, so that was awesome. I mean, so many good fights.
I had 100% Volk in DFS, and I had a bet on him as well. But it was one of those, after watching it, it's like, man, I almost wish I would have had more action on Volk, because, like, minus 400 was not anywhere close to the true actual line. Like, the strength difference, the cardio, like the wrestling, I mean, it was just an absolute –
It was exactly what we said, too. He was going to put his wrestling shoes on, and he was going to just work them. And then it just became too much at the end. And then, he's so good. But, some great fights.
Underrated.
Yeah. I mean, what was that thing? I saw you posted something, Madlab, about they gave John Jones, like, best fighter of the year or something like that. What was that thing?
He had 3 minutes, not even. I don't even know how many minutes of cage time he had. How many minutes did he fight in that fight?
No, not that many. I can't remember exactly.
And they gave him fighter of the fucking year, dude. Like, how?
Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, who would you give it to? I mean, come on. I just talked about Volk, Islam. Who are we giving it to? I mean, come on.
You can give it to a ton of people. I mean, there's a lot of people you can give it to. I mean, dude, I can name about 6 or 7 guys. You don't have to be a champion. I mean, guys who just went on really good runs or had good bounce back years, but to give it to him is like, I don't even see. How about Jamahal Hill getting hurt?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one.
That's a big one.
Yeah, so he's going to be out a while, right? Did he tear his Achilles?
Achilles is a big.
Brutal.
You're never the same after an Achilles.
Yeah, we've seen
that
in careers.
That's like the worst for a lot of athletes. That's like the worst one too.
Pretty much ends NFL running backs' careers when they get that one. So we'll see. Hopefully Jamahal Hill can come back healthy and fight again for that belt. Let's go over to you, Drew. How you doing on this Saturday morning?
Yeah, doing good. DC, thanks for having me again. Last week's card was boiled down to what we talked about. Who can get 140 instead of 120? And it's interesting. I think the winning lineup scored about 780 points. It's got to be a record. And Bo Nickel ended up being on the optimal, or I don't know if this was the optimal. I assume it was, but at least on the winning lineup that won 200K. And he only scored 127. So, huge scores last week. A lot of fun. I think this card's really interesting for tournaments because – like I said, last week, it's 140 versus 120. It really boiled down to who got the ceiling numbers. I think this week you're going to be a lot more unique, and I don't think you're going to have as much overlap with all the favorites winning by knockout. So it should be a fun week, actually.
By the way, that Ross knockout where Madlab was talking about how when your legs straighten, it's like the worst feeling ever. That dude just went straight and dropped. You guys see that one where it was like boom and he was done? That was a sick knockout right there.
Kind of previewed the whole card last week because it was a fantastic card, top to bottom. Awesome to see. I know RPS had a bunch of winners up near the top of tournaments, so congratulations to anyone who followed the picks, who got to the playbook, followed Madlab, watched the show, and came out on top last week. We'll hope to do it again this week. 13 fights to talk about. We'll jump right in. First fight on the card, we do go to the women's division. It is Ashley Evans-Smith and Aylin Perez. Perez sitting around minus 230. This one is slight favorite to go the distance. Let's start to you first, Madlab. What do you see Perez and Evans-Smith?
I got to be honest with you. This fight scares me a little bit. And the reason why, it's because of what Ashley Evans-Smith has in her back pocket. I mean, morally, I shouldn't like her. After everything that she's done, especially with the whole COVID thing when she was stealing medical supplies from nurses that should have had them, like shit like that. But we don't go by that.
I'm not aware of this story.
You don't know what happened with her? So she what is it called? During COVID, she was not stealing like masks and stuff from a store. She was stealing medical supplies that were supposed to give them to actual nurses that were on site to keep them safe. She was stealing them.
What was she doing with them?
Selling them. Selling them. So
I like this girl.
Yeah, but morally, she, that's what you got to look at her fighting style. When you look at her fighting style, she's been off for almost 3 years, about 3 years. She got suspended for PEDs on top of that, so she hasn't fought in a while. However, you got to look in female MMA wrestling. If you have a collegiate wrestling background, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. And Ashley Evans-Smith does have a collegiate level wrestling background. So she doesn't use it, though. She likes to box. That's her problem. But you don't know after this 3-year layoff, like, what if she does come in and say, listen, I'm gonna utilize my wrestling. Now I'm going to start grinding these girls with my wrestling. A lot of girls might not be able to keep up with it. I just don't know if she's going to do that. So it's hard to be a crystal ball. So for that reason, I do like Perez, but I don't have a lot of interest in this fight just for the mere fact that both of these girls technically probably going to take this one to the cards. But from a picking perspective, like on DraftKings, like just be careful with this fight. Don't sleep on Ashley Evans-Smith because if she comes out and uses her collegiate background, she can give this girl some problems. But like I said, it's nothing. I mean, you could kick this one off the card for me. I probably won't be going near it.
Yeah, I might be tuning in 20 minutes late to the card, skipping this one, and hope both fighters, JSU, put up scores in the 40s or 50s, something like that. But your thoughts here between these two women?
I mean, that sounds like a good idea to me. You don't know what Evan Smith's going to do, too. I mean, 2-year layoff, the PEDs, like Madlab said. If she gets it to the ground, that's what she should do. But who knows if she will. I see a decision here, like Madlab as well. So for me, this is a fight that I'm just going to be under on both sides for DFS. This is as simple as it comes. In these low-level, women's fights, I want to be under on it. And I probably won't have much Perez at all at 8,800 and probably won't have that much as Evan Smith either. I might just fade them both and move on. Just hope it's a boring decision. Or, even if Perez wins, she wins and, doesn't put up that big of a score, which I do think is pretty reasonable to happen. So for this fight, I'll just make it easy. I'm out on it for DFS.
Yeah, 3 for 3 kind of out in this fight. Drew, do you have a different opinion on Perez and Evan Smith?
Not really. I mean, I like Perez in the fight, but from a DFS perspective, I'm pretty low on her. She's the lowest rated fighter I have, over 8,500. But as far as ownership goes, I got Perez at 26% and Evan Smith at 13%. So Perez is still going to get a decent chunk of ownership just being at her price range. But yeah, I'm pretty cool with skipping out of this fight. Honestly, like I said, she rates out the lowest over 8,500. Looks like she'll probably win, but if it's via decision and it's not really a super active fight, and like Madlab said, there's actually some competition with Evan Smith wrestling. It might not be a great fight to target for a favorite. So yeah, I'll be out on this fight as well. I'll be with you guys, but yeah.
Jesse, let me ask you a question. When you're sweating these fights for DFS, I know when I'm fading a fight, it's really not very fun to watch and hoping for zero action, right? Do you have that sense too?
It's the worst, actually.
Yeah.
It's the worst because you don't want to not watch and then miss something, obviously. But at the same time, you're rooting for it to be boring.
Yeah.
So it not only is it not entertaining, you're rooting for it to be not entertaining, which is not fun, right? So for me, I watch it, but I try to do other things while I watch it. Whereas fights I'm invested in, I'm not doing anything else. You know what I mean? I'm fully watching that fight. So
when I'm fading a fight, every round seems like it takes half an hour. And then when you need a knockout, the rounds seem like they just absolutely fly by. So it is
that's how it always is. By the way, too, if you remember, we just uploaded Madlab's projections into SaberSim. So anyone who is a member at Rumpier Sports and has a SaberSim package as well, we just uploaded those projections up, so they are good to go for today.
Yeah, and I guess a good time to mention, if you do want to join, get Madlab's projections, get all of our picks over on the playbook, get Bobby Hare's write-ups, and all other sports. We do have a promo code SUMMER33 for 33% off weekly and monthly packages. Hit the like button too while you're here. It does help us out, bring you these shows free of charge each and every week. All right, let's get on to the next fight on the card. Alexander Munoz sitting minus 200 over Carl Deaton. Another fight that is favored to go the distance, in contrast to last week, Madlab, where we had almost all the fights favored to finish inside the distance. This card, we do have a bunch of fights that are favored to go the distance. So much different card, but Munoz, decent favorite over Deaton here. What do you got between these two?
Yeah, I mean, this is technically for me, this is like a grappler versus striker situation. Deaton's good striker, definitely better on the feet, smoother, more cage time, more cage experience. When you look at Munoz, he's been off. There's another guy like Ashley Evan Smith. He's been off. You don't know what he's really going to present to the table, but he does have the wrestling. He does have the grappling. Now, people look at Carl Deaton and they're saying, listen, he doesn't have grappling. He's just not a good grappler. He can't. You got to understand, though, his last fight, he fought Joey Selecki. Now, I know Joey Selecki. I called his fights in Atlantic City, so I was actually cage side to really dissect this kid and watch him fight. This kid's grappling super high level, so you can't really go on the Selecki train and be like, well, he couldn't out-grapple, Selecki. The fact that I didn't like about that fight with Selecki was, I don't care if you're not that great of a grappler, be able to do something. Selecki was literally on top of him the whole fight. He couldn't even, get a hip out. He couldn't shrimp out. He couldn't get his hips loose. He could not do anything. So I think it's really a case of if Deaton keeps his fight on the feet, then I think the advantage is him. If he can't stop a takedown and Munoz takes him down, it's going to be an advantage him. But it's like a 50-50 for me if I think this fight goes all the way or not. And I think it does. I think it goes all the way, which is kind of pulling me back a little bit on this fight. I could see Munoz maybe linking something up sometime late, but I'm not going to have a lot of ownership on this fight either. It's too tough of a matchup. And for seeing Carl Deaton go, all three with last as long as he did with Selecki, I think it'll be tough for Munoz to try to link something up. So I think it goes to the decision. I'm not going to be super, super high on this fight either.
Yeah, that makes sense. JSU, Munoz decision could potentially score well, right? With his fighting style, we have seen him get takedowns in the UFC despite losing both of his UFC fights. But the last one, he did get 4 takedowns, did land 80 significant strikes. So I think there's some potential for him here. Obviously, a decent favorite, reasonable tag at 8,300. I've got some interest in Munoz. Interested to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to go crazy with what he did last time because he's been off for 2 years. I think he said he was coming off of an ACL tear, which he kind of kept quiet. And I saw him talking, in an interview with someone. And he said, yeah. And in that 2 years, he said he pretty much changed things up. He became like more of a strength and conditioning guy, whereas before he said he wasn't doing any strength conditioning. He was mainly just using his MMA training, like in the cage and all that stuff to train. And he's like, I added that in as I was building the strength for my ACL. And he said, like, he was really happy that they didn't push him back too soon, which is always good to hear. Like, it seems like they let him kind of dictate, okay, I'm ready to fight now, get me someone. So that's always nice to hear when a guy's talking that he doesn't feel they push him too soon. He feels ready to go and all that stuff. And I do feel like for DFS, he probably in a win would score better. I think if Deaton wins, it's in a decision, and I don't think Deaton scores as well. I think Munoz, I've seen people, he's going to take you down, but I've seen people get up. You know what I mean? In that Pena fight, Pena got up. Munoz struggled a little with the reach and everything, which Pena did have a nice reach advantage, and he was taller, obviously. But Munoz wasn't like, he threw some power in his shots. They weren't as smooth, though, as Pena, obviously. And I think that's what Madlab's kind of getting at with the striking. But I think Munoz is going to be much better if he gets this to the mat, and that's where it can score really well. If Deaton can get up, he takes him back down. Yeah. And so that's where, for DFS, I think Munoz has the most upside. So I'm picking Munoz to win. And even if it's in a decision, which I do think it's probably in a decision, I think Munoz is going to score decent at 8,300 in the decision win with some takedowns. So I like him in this fight. I'm not a fan of Deaton. To me, when I watch him, I'm like, he doesn't let his hands go. Sometimes he's a little afraid to jump in the pocket. He kind of is. He kind of waits to like counter strike sometimes, and it drives me nuts because when guys won't, and they'll just kick that lead leg, they'll kind of wait for him, and so sometimes he can get into a first round where he's not doing that much, and then he feels like he has to make up for it in the later rounds, and I think that could be a little of the case too. So for me, I just think lower output in the beginning scares me when I watch his fights, and I'm going to stay away for DFS. So full fade on Deaton, going to have some Munoz.
I like it. And, I like hearing about the strength and conditioning for Munoz. You add that to what seems like a wrestling base for him, and perhaps we have an improved fighter to see here. So I really like the Munoz call. Let's throw it to you, Drew. What do you see in Munoz and Deaton?
Yeah, I got Munoz at 25% owned and Deaton at 10% owned. So he's going to be probably the lowest owned fighter above 7K. Munoz, I mean, honestly, Vegas sees this fight staying on the mat. It gives a decent number to Munoz to win via submission. It's just a little bit higher than a knockout rate. And then same with Deaton. Like, they actually give Deaton about an equal opportunity to win by submission. So I think Vegas sees this being on the mat, and if that's going to be the case, then control time could be a big factor for Munoz. So, I'm with you. I mean, Deaton, his money line numbers implied for 33%, and he's almost 8K. So it's a tough one to get to paying that price. So, yeah, I'm kind of with you. I'm lower overall in this fight, but I don't want to be off of Munoz in any contest. So, yeah, I'll probably side closer to JSU with just fading Deaton and having a little slice of Munoz.
I got a question for Madlab real quick. When you see guys coming off like that long of a layoff, does it just give you pause to say I should just be under on it all in general?
Yeah, I just like even someone like Jamahal Hill, like when he comes back, or when someone like Rakic. I love Alexander Rakic. When he comes back, I don't know how explosive he's going to be off that knee. I don't know if he's going to be able to throw the kicks the way he used to. So I'm always of the sound mind of like, show me first, and then I'll play. But I don't want to, listen, we have all been injured. I've had 2 ACL injuries. Like, I know what it's like to come back and, oh man, I don't have that explosion like I used to. Or you're hesitant to throw something because you don't want to tear it again. Especially with kicks when it comes to your legs and stuff like that, when you have to, when you have to like plant and you got to pivot and you got to stuff like that, like the dynamics of your kneecap are tilting in levels that it's not used of when you're just walking. So I just like to show me first. Like, show me first. I know you have the potential. I know you can do it. And then if you show me, then I'll buy in. So that's why, like, when they come back on 3-year layoffs and stuff, I just back up and watch, you know?
Yeah.
It's safe, right? If I eat crow, I eat crow. You know, so maybe he comes down and gets his first round submission, but I just find it hard to like, I don't like reading blind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, but you do it with everyone. So like, if you're not picking and choosing, like, this guy tore his ACL, but he's lower level, so I'm gonna stay away from him. Jamahal Hill, he does something. Okay, so it's the same regardless. I was just getting that.
Yeah, all makes sense there. We'll move on to the next fight. Second biggest favorite on the card is Azat Maxim, sitting at -400 to -420. Some money looks like coming in on him as well against UFC veteran Tyson Nam. Maxim making his UFC debut here, 16-0 in his pro career. I've got a hot take on this fight, but we'll throw it to you first, Madlab. What do you see, Nam and Maxim?
So this is a fight where, you know, you're afraid right out of the gate. You see 16-0. That debuting 16-0, it like all lines up for travesty. You know what I mean? But you know, when you look at Tyson Nam, what do we say? The first thing to go is your power as you get older, right? I mean, the last thing to go is your power. You keep your power till the very end, and usually that's a good thing, especially for someone like Nam, who his game is predicated on power. But the problem with that is his division is predicated on speed, and speed is the first thing to go. So he's got the power, so he keeps that going, but he's in a division where speed is probably more important. Speed, you know, and those faster twitch fibers. So, you know, he's at a situation here in this fight where, can he win this fight? Yeah, absolutely, he can win this fight if he catches him with something big. But the chances of him keeping up with, you know, Maxim, you know, so well rounded, he can finish it everywhere. He's got a litany of different chokes, like Bravo chokes. He's got knockouts. He's going to be east. He's going to be west. He's going to be north. He's going to be south. I just see like Nam getting lost in translation in a situation like this, where he's going to need to resort to like really dialing him in and trying to land that kill switch. And he's got 15 minutes to do it. But, you know, from when you look at the price of Maxim, you may think it's a little high, but this is literally 15 minutes where if he gets on a pace quick, this kid can finish the fight. So I'm not, you know, I'm not terrified of that price with him, but I'm not shying away from Nam either, because he's shown in the past where he could be down 2 rounds and he can land that one shot and he can knock you out. So, you know, I'll be on this fight. I think it's a violent spot for sure. I think somebody's definitely going to get finished. I tend to lean Maxim more though.
Yeah, I'm on Nam here. This is my upset pick of the card. He's got that big right hand, right? You mentioned Nam's power. I think he's live in this fight. And honestly, JSU, watching Maxim's tape for his last 2 fights, I wasn't all that impressed with the striking. He seemed to be somewhat predictable, just kind of 1-2s down the middle. The wrestling looked average to me, frankly. I know he's 16-0, but I think Nam's got a chance here to land the big punch, get the knockout. Obviously, at 6,600, if he does so, you're kind of off to the races. That's kind of the one upset you need on this card. So I'll be making my stand on Tyson Nam on this one. But your thoughts, Maxim and Tyson Nam?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I like this fight to finish, so I get it, and I get that Nam, if he connects with that big punch, yeah, he could put anyone's lights out here. But I think what Madlab said, the best point was the speed and the speed factor, and that's clearly where Nam struggles, I think, right now in his career, and I think that's what Maxim has, that is going to be an issue for Nam. So for me, you know, listen, I like any dog where you know he at least has a path, right? He has the path to win. Nam definitely has a path, so he's viable in DFS at that price tag and everything. And I think this is a fight for DFS. You could play both sides of it if you're making multiple lineups. You could have a little bit of Nam in there and some Maxim, especially if you like this fight to finish like I do. But I think the speed's going to be too much for Nam. I think Maxim is going to finish this fight here. So I'm going to be a little more on the Maxim side. But again, if you're playing 150, you should definitely have a little bit of Nam, just because if he does finish this fight, I mean, he's probably going to be optimal here.
Yeah, I think he's much more alive than a typical plus 300 dog myself. But let's throw it to you, Drew. What do you have for ownership between these two? I'm hoping for a low number on Nam.
Yeah, I got Nam at 9%. So
Very nice.
you're going to get him sub 10. Maxim, relatively low for what his inside the distance number looks like in his money line number. He's at 28%. So I think the problem with him is you got a fighter $100 more with a drastically better number for a knockout in round one. So we'll get there here shortly. But yeah, I mean, I can see Nam having a knockout path. He's got about a 10% implied probability to finish via knockout in round one alone. So Vegas gives him a little bit of respect there. But it does seem like Maxim is pretty well-rounded, and he got an 11-year advantage being younger. So, yeah, I mean, it's obvious Maxim's a favorite. I'll lean Maxim. As far as, like, in ownership goes, I don't think Maxim's, like, the priority just at his price. That's the tough one to get to. But I don't mind a sprinkle of Nam from what I'm hearing. Like, honestly, 10%, you could basically match the field or go a little bit over, and it's not going to eat away too much equity. So, yeah, I do like this fight overall. But like I said, Maxim is tough to get to if there's some other priorities you want to try to get to in the 9K range.
Yeah, for sure. Smoking Gun says turn $99 into $426. Thank you for the content last week. Yeah, love to see the winners. There are, of course, a lot more in the RPS chat, but you're welcome, Smoking Guns 40, and thanks for the support on the show. All right, let's get to the next fight on the card. Kind of two big favorites here. There's not a lot on this card, just 3 fighters, minus 300 or more of the 13 fights. But Evan Elder is sitting there at minus 300 against Gennaro Valdez. Back to you, Madlab. Elder, Valdez, what do you see?
Yeah, this is a fight that scares me in the first round. You know what I mean? Valdez is a guy who comes out of the gates really, really hot. He's got that like kamikaze way about him, but he's got like a reckless structure to him. It's so weird. He just doesn't come in like flailing things. He actually has some kind of structure and rhyme and reason behind what he does. But it's the first round. It's like that storm in the first round that he catches people with. He catches them off guard. He'll catch them cold. And that's what you got to be, scared of. And when you look at Evan Elder, people are looking at him like when you see a couple sample sizes, he looks like a pretty durable dude. But how many times have we seen these pretty durable dudes in certain fights and then they look extremely less durable in other fights? So it's one of those fights. I keep getting these like movie reels in my mind that like something weird is going to happen in this fight, but you got to go with the smart end of things. You got to use the smart side of your brain. And, Evan Elder just has that more consistent 15 minutes in him. We've seen him, in adversity a little bit more. I know when you look at Valdez, you can't like kill him for these losses. I mean, he got knocked out by Matt Frivola, who hits like a truck. People are looking at, Natan Levy's a really good fighter. I mean, he couldn't knock out Big T, Natan Levy, but, he lost the decision to him. So it's not like he's had bad competition, dude. He's fought good competition, but
I'm going to fight back on he couldn't knock out Big T. I'm calling bullshit there. One of those, I'll tell you right now, one of those kicks from Levy that Valdez took would have definitely put Big T's lights out.
Yeah.
He took 2 of them. He took 2 different kicks that dropped him, and he got back up. I don't think Big T's taking 2 of those kicks.
No, he would get up. But he's fought some good competition. But like I said, to me, he doesn't tie the consistent 15 minutes together. And that's the biggest thing for me. You got to tie a good 15 minutes together. Where Evan Elder does. Like Evan Elder's fight, was stopped due to against Sadikov with that cut. He would have kept going, and he was fighting. That was a great fight. Who knows who would have won that fight if that went to the cards? Sadikov looked like he was pulling away a little bit, but still a great fight. So it's just a consistency of Elder. I just don't know if this fight's going to end inside the distance or not. I could see there's another fight. I could see Elder finishing it like halfway through the fight, and I can also see it just staying on the feet for 15 minutes and being like a slobber knocker of a fight. Valdez wins round 1, Elder wins round 2, and then round 3, you're going to have a reckless war. So I don't know. I mean, I think he's got the upside to cover. I know there's going to be ownership on Elder, and I'm not going to, poo-poo on it. But it does scare me that this one goes to the cards.
Yeah, minus 300, like we said, for JSU or for Elder, rather JSU, and a favorite to finish the fight.
I'd be minus 300. Is that what you're saying,
Yeah,
DC?
we'll
I think I'd be like minus 3,000.
Minus 300 against Big T.
Yeah.
But I assume Elder obviously going to be a popular fighter, 9,400, favored to finish inside the distance. Your thoughts here? It's kind of weird to see, fighter minus 300 coming off of 2 losses, but that's the case for Elder here. What do you see, JSU?
Yeah. So first of all, Valdez, like Madlab said, when you look at the Steamroller fight, Steamroller dropped this dude like 3 different times. I mean, bent him over his ankles, dropped him, like absolutely crushed this dude. And he kept getting up to the point where Steamroller was like, screw this, I'm going to try and choke him out. And he couldn't do that. And then he's like, I'm just going to keep hitting him until they flattened him out and just started hitting him until they finally stopped the fight. But he didn't just like Valdez is so tough. He just kept getting up and kept getting up. And this dude is on another level when it comes to that just mindset of like, dude, you're going to have to absolutely kill, because he got caught. Like, these were clean shots too. And he was dropping and getting back up. Same thing with the Levy fight. Levy caught him twice with leg kicks. He hit him in the liver once and almost folded him in half, and he wouldn't fold. You saw him kind of drop like this, but most dudes go down. He did not go down. He stood back up. I think Valdez's toughness is just absolutely insane. The one thing I didn't like, the Levy fight to me showed the corner was definitely teaching him. Valdez is starting to learn, like, okay, when I throw, I can't just throw reckless and then go into it. I got to, take my chances and then come back. And you could see a little more patience in that fight, which was good. Because in the Frivola fight, they just got into a war. And when, Steamroller, when you get into a war with someone like him, that's where they like to be. And I think this is a good fight for DFS if it gets into a war. I could also see where Evan Elder decides to wrestle. And I think that's his best path. Why get in a war with someone as tough as Valdez when you have this in your back pocket to wrestle? I think it's what he should do. If he does, he could score well, whether it finishes or whether it goes to the cards if he decides to wrestle. But I think for DFS, Valdez is a good dog. He's going to fight, man. This dude's going to throw. He's got potential. He's got power. To finish this. So I think for me, I'm going to lean more towards the dog here at 6,800, and he'll be my upset of the week here. But for DFS, I think you should definitely have sides of this fight. Personally, I like both sides here.
Makes sense. Elder, Valdez, let's go to you, Drew. What do you have for ownership, and what's your pick between Elder and Valdez?
Yeah, I have Elder at 33% owned and Valdez at 12.5% owned. I kind of like Valdez a little bit more as a dog than Nam or Nam, but it's pretty close. And I would probably just try to pick one of those dogs to focus my lineups on instead of sprinkling, 15% on each, and you throw away half your, a third of your equity. So, I do like Elder quite a bit. 9,400, I see him as under-owned, to be honest. So Elder's probably one of my favorite. It makes a lot of sense at 9,400. It doesn't sound like a lot, but that $200 off of Maxim makes a lot of sense in lineup construction. So Elder's one of my favorite plays on the week, but I do not mind Valdez as a dog to target. He honestly, inside the distance number via knockout looks decent. So Valdez 6,800. I'm fine with. Elder's going to be probably my favorite play. One of my favorite plays for GPPs.
Awesome. That's Elder, Valdez. We'll move on to the next fight. Melchizedek Costa minus 250. So another decent favorite here over Austin Lingo. This one essentially a coin flip to finish inside the distance or not. Back to you, Madlab, Costa, and Lingo. What do you see?
Yeah, I like this fight. I like this kid Costa. There's something about him that I just like his progressions. Like, you know what I mean? If you really look at him, from fight to fight on the regionals up until now, even his last fight, he lost with Thiago Moises. But Thiago Moises, let's face it, dude, this dude is a high pedigree black belt. A lot of people don't look at him that way, but he is. But, so this kid's going to go through growing pains and stuff like that. But I like that he's a southpaw. You know what I mean? Austin Lingo, I was never an Austin Lingo guy. Like, to me, he's just very rudimentary mentally when it comes to inside the cage. He doesn't really progress from fight to fight. He's got his style. You know what you're getting from Austin Lingo. And it's basically now when they say Austin Lingo's name, you just got to take the other fighter and you got to kind of puzzle piece him into the matchup and see, is that a matchup that's going to give Lingo problems or is it not going to give Lingo problems? I think this kid's going to give Lingo a lot of problems. You know what I mean? I think the only way that he doesn't give Lingo problems is if he fights Lingo's fight. You got to fight Lingo's fight to give Lingo a victory. If you don't fight his fight, doesn't matter any other fight that you give him, you're going to give him problems, and he just can't seem to figure it out. So it's really predicated on, is Costa going to come in intelligently and his camp going to say, listen, we're going to go, we're going to take detours and different, avenues around this guy's fight, or are we just going to go fight him fire with fire and do what he wants to do? So if Costa does the proper thing, I think believe it or not, I think he can actually finish this fight. So I'm kind of teetering on the line with Costa, how much ownership I'm going to have with him. I'm not going to have a lot of ownership with Lingo at all. I just feel like he's either got to land that shot on Costa, or Costa's got to slip on a banana peel. Like I think Costa kind of has him everywhere covered in the spot. Athletically, he's got more tools in the toolbox, and all he's got to do is kind of stay away from the game plan that Lingo wants. So I think it's a bad matchup for Lingo. So I just can't decipher how much I'm going to have on this kid, just for pricing reasons.
Yeah, makes sense. Great breakdown there. We have seen steady money come in on Costa, opened at minus 138. Sometimes you see it's just like a number that's off from the beginning and it gets bet, way down. But this one looks like steadily moving over the last couple of weeks, JSU, from minus 138 for Costa to minus 230 right now. So certainly it does seem like the public, or the big money at least, likes Costa. What do you see Costa and Lingo?
Yeah, I see Costa winning. I think this is definitely a fight that's going to give Lingo problems, like Madlab was saying. And he hit it on the head. Like, if you fight Lingo's fight, that's what he wants. But that's the one area where he has a chance to win. I think Costa has many areas where he can take it, where he can easily win over Lingo, as long as he doesn't do that one thing. I mean, Lingo wants to move forward. He wants to make this into kind of a brawl type striking match, and I think Costa has the kicks, keeps him at range, gets him up against the cage, which is what he wants to do. He wants to get you up against the cage, wants to find a way to get you down, grapple, boom, you're on the ground, and he's slick from there. I think for Costa, you could get control time, I guess, against the cage too. But for me at 9,100, even though I think he does win, I don't know how well he's going to score from a DFS perspective, and I don't know if that's Madlab's trepidation on how much Costa do I have, because I don't see him in a win.
Yeah.
Even if he finished it, I don't see it where he could have the big boy score that some of these other 9K studs could have if they finish in their upside. So that's my issue too. This is a fight I'm going to be lower on in general. I do see Costa winning the fight, though. I do think this is a fight where he can fight intelligently enough to keep it in his areas where Lingo definitely will be behind. And it's just for DFS, I don't think it's a great fight to target. I mean, even Lingo, when he wins, like decision, I think he wins in a decision if he wins, and it's more of just a striking match, which, it could score okay at 7,100, obviously, but I don't think he's going to win. So I'm just kind of lower on this fight.
Yeah, that all makes sense to me. Drew, what do you got for ownership, and what do you got between Costa and Lingo?
Yeah, I have Costa at 25% owned and Lingo at 17% owned. So Lingo's going to be kind of a semi-popular dog down there at 7,100. I'm pretty low in this fight, to be fair. I think Costa ends up winning it, but I think at the price, it's really tough to really feel conviction about him being on the optimal lineup, I guess, with the other favorites above him. So I like Costa. I think at 25% owned, it's basically even odds for him being on the optimal lineup, I guess, or below that. So I'm lower on this fight. Costa will be my pick to win, but I'll probably be really light on this fight and probably no Lingo at all.
Drew, with all the research that you do with this stuff, could you see this card? Like, to me, these are cards. Like, as we're breaking them down, it's just I keep coming to the realization of it. This is a card where you're really not going to have a tie on an optimal lineup.
I wouldn't think so. No, it's going to be a weird lineup.
That's what I'm saying. It's
going to be weird.
I said this is. I guarantee if the four of us right now picked an optimal lineup, we would be wrong.
Oh yeah, I would believe that. Yeah, because something weird is going to happen. Yeah. I think this is a better card for tournaments than last week because, like I said, last week would just boil down to you have 6 winners, but then you have 6 winners and one of them scored 140. Yep. This week, I think it's really just trying to get the 6 winners and maybe get 2 of them over 120. So I really do like this card for tournaments. But like you said, it's going to be kind of weird. I think if you have a couple wins through 5-6 fights, you're going to be live for a pretty good score.
If the four of us can pick the optimal lineup on the show on one channel, we should go ahead and do so. That would be very beneficial.
The four of us can pick the optimal lineup in this card. We should all retire from this because that would be amazing.
At 11:45 Eastern time. Yeah.
We should do so.
Madlab, it's like 7:45 where he is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
Dude, I felt bad asking you guys to do it an hour later, but bro, Christ. You guys got
I
me
could do any time. So when you said you were West Coast, I was like, oh shit, that sucks. He's got to get up at 7 a.m. Friggin' yeah, we'll do it later.
Yeah, we'll keep it moving. Next fight on the card, making her UFC debut, Victoria Dudikova and Estela Nunez. It is Dudikova who is pretty decent favorite, sitting around -190 to -200. Women's strawweight division. What do you got here, Madlab?
Well, I don't know. Like, Estela Nunez should feel very honored that they actually still have her on the roster after 3 straight.
Yeah, 0-3. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, I don't know if she's blowing somebody in the company, but usually when you have 3 straight losses like that, like the third loss, that's your pink slip. They're giving her a 4th chance here. So her back is really against the wall. I don't think if she loses this fight that she's going to be here. The thing with Estela Nunez is, she's a great first-round fighter. She might be one of the better first-round fighters in the division. I don't know if she's lost the first round. You know what I mean? Like this girl, when she gets out of the first round, she puts a lot of fire behind it. The problem with her cardio drops off a tier hard and quick. She's fighting a girl in Dudikova who, you know, all she has to really do is weather that storm. And if she weathers that storm, Estela Nunez really doesn't have much on the ground. She's all on the feet. And if you look at the matchup here, Dudikova is a girl who likes to hit the ground, grind you out there, look for submission. She's got some wacky transitions. I don't know if you guys watched her on film, but some of her transitions are really like off the cuff. They're not really fundamental. She really goes down like weird streets to find these transitions, and she seems to get them, which is kind of weird. But she's 6-0. You know, she's another one who's kind of, you know, still raw. She's still, you know, young. She's going to make her mistakes under the big lights right now. You don't know how they react. It's another thing I always kind of back up on a little bit when you have a debuting fighter that doesn't have a lot of experience. You got to wonder, like, is the media going to start getting to him? Is the bright lights going to start getting to him? It doesn't matter if it's in the Apex or not. They know the cameras are on them and they're fighting in the big show. You know, so you got to wonder about that. I mean, we've seen it happen with the Queen of Violence, with Manel Cap. When Manel Cap first came in, it took him a good 2 and 3 fights to really start catching his stride. You know, so you got to wonder, is that going to happen to Dudikova? I just think that this is a fight, believe it or not, that I'll be targeting in DraftKings on the Dudikova side, because I do think she's live for a submission in the 2nd and 3rd round. I think that she's got to get by that first round of Estela Nunez. If she does, I don't think Estela Nunez poses a threat to her after in the 2nd and 3rd round. So I don't know what Drew's got for ownership here, and I don't got mine in front of me, but I think she's super live for a submission. And when you look at Dudikova, she's a female, and a lot of guys don't want to target those fights. A lot of guys they'd rather, go after, this guy's got upside for a knockout, and they kind of surpass this a little bit. So to me, I think she could be a good target play and somebody that can really, really, possibly ellipse the 100+ mark if she drags this to the ground in the 2nd round and gets a sub.
You think Dudikova's wrestling is good enough to get this one to the mat, Madlab? Yeah. Yeah,
I don't think Estela's wrestling. I don't think Estela's, really serviceable. I think she's, really not serviceable at all after the 2nd round outside of her striking. So I think that's what she needs to do. She needs to sit back on her heels. She needs to play possum with her. And then in the 2nd round, just take it to her. And I think if she gets her to the ground once, that's all she's going to need.
Yeah, that makes sense. We'll get to the ownership question to Drew in a second here, but let's go over to you again, JSU. What do you see between these two ladies?
Yeah, I see very similar to what Madlab was talking about. Dudikova, I mean, honestly, you do not want to clinch with this girl, because from the clinch, she's going to find ways to get you down. The Wizard, she's very good from the clinch, and she will throw you right to the mat. And from there, like Madlab said, it could be over quick. I do think she can also score well if she could get a few takedowns. Weathers the 1st round, definitely live for a submission, or she could get takedowns in control time, and that could score well too for DFS. So I agree with Madlab. She's probably the best DFS play for the scoring, from a scoring standpoint. And Nunez wants to keep it, in a striking match. I don't know if she can, though. I think if I think Dudikova gets her into that clinch. I think she's in big trouble. And like Madlab said, once she gets on the ground once, she might not get back up. So if that's the case, I think she's going to be in trouble. My pick's Dudikova. And I do think she gets a submission. I like the second round. I don't know what second round submission is, Drew, but kind of like that call right there.
Yeah. Plus 900.
Plus 900.
Yep. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like the call on Dudikova. What do you got for ownership here, Drew?
24% for Dudikova, and get this, 20% for Nunez. Ooh. I think people are chasing the underdog women's fight from last week with Gomes. So, yeah, I mean, I hear what you guys are saying. I'm going to side with Dudikova. They obviously respect her. Vegas respects her quite a bit to get it done on the mat. And I'll be honest, I assume if you're in the professional fighting game, you know what Madlab just said, that Nunez is going to come out firing in round one on the feet. And if you can survive that, you're probably going to win the fight, probably via submission in round two. So I think Dudikova is going to have a game plan. He's going to play it smart. I'm not going to have any Nunez. Dudikova is fine for GPPs. She's still rates out a little bit lower with Elder right above her. But I think Dudikova is a fine target. And honestly, at 24% owned, she's going to be the lowest owned of anybody of the top mid and top 9K fighters. So, yeah, I think people are going to shy away from the favorite women here, favorite woman. And Nunez is going to get way over-owned.
All right. I'll be jumping on the Dudikova bandwagon with you guys for that one. Let's go to the next fight on the card. Melsik Baghdasarian and Tucker Lutz. It is Baghdasarian sitting a modest favorite of minus 160 or so. Another fight that is essentially a coin flip to finish inside the distance or not. Back to you, Madlab. What do you see, Baghdasarian and Tucker Lutz?
Yeah, I'm torn on this fight. I got to be honest with you. I see a lot of people on Tucker Lutz in this fight, and I don't understand why. I don't think Tucker Lutz is really that good. But at the same token, when you look at what he's actually okay at, Baghdasarian can't stop it. So that's where I'm like kind of teetering and I'm toying with this. I'm like, all right, what do I do here? So, Baghdasarian is a very good striker. If this stays on the feet for 15 minutes, he's literally going to chew Lutz up and spit him out. You know what I mean? The problem is he's probably not. I don't know if he's going to knock him out. So that gives me a little bit of pause. If Tucker Lutz comes in with a straight up wrestling game plan, like I am literally just going to push his hips. I'm going to pressure him. Even if I fail, I'm going to just keep committing to the wrestling. Even though his wrestling's not that good, it's going to give Baghdasarian problems because he does not have good takedown defense in any way, shape, or form. As of now, there's things that he can fix. So it's kind of what do you trust more? Do you trust that Baghdasarian is going to be able to keep the range, keep the space, use the real estate of the cage, and kind of just sting him and keep him off him to keep him honest? Or do you trust that Lutz is going to kind of crash the pocket, get in on his hips, and take him down, where he would probably most likely have success? The problem with Tucker Lutz is you can bait him into any kind of fight that you want. You could make a blueprint for some of these guys, and you could say I'm making a blueprint for you, DC, and I'm like, this is what we need to do, and I laid it out for you for 3 months, and you're like, I got it. Once you go in there and once you're actually inside the fight, sometimes it all goes out the window. You know what I mean? And some people don't. Some people stick to what's tried and true. So I haven't seen Tucker Lutz really stick to a game plan where I could really decipher whether or not he's going to. I think he is live. I think is a situation where absolutely he could take this fight to the ground and control it for 15 minutes. But then I also see a situation where Baghdasarian can literally just eat him and chew him up on the feet for 15 minutes, where Tucker Lutz is going to allow him to do that. So I'm kind of torn on this fight from a DraftKings perspective. I could see this fight going to the cards. Like, I got to be honest with you. I could see this fight just riding to the cards, and I really don't know how much ownership I'm going to have here. I kind of lean towards Baghdasarian's side just because he's more polished. But I don't know. From a DraftKings perspective, I'm actually waiting for JSU and Drew on this one.
Yeah, Baghdasarian seems overpriced to me, JSU, at 9,200, but curious to hear your thoughts between these two.
Yeah, I mean, my another Armenian brother. Armenians have been crushing it in the UFC. I will just say that. But at 9,200, first of all, I do think he wins. Tucker Lutz, to me, even when he wrestles and stuff like that, and yeah, he's going to crash and he's going to kind of rush in and level change and get onto those hips. I've seen guys get up after that. Like, it's not like he's holding you down. So, like, I've seen it happen. I just don't think – I think Baghdasarian can use that range, use those kicks, and really almost bait him, like Madlab said, into his type of fight. And I do see it going to the cards, which means that I don't like a 9,200 Baghdasarian going to the cards for DFS.
Yeah.
And if I do think he also wins this fight, I'm definitely not going to be as high on Tucker Lutz either. The only way I could see it, I guess, is if Tucker Lutz just kept getting takedowns and Baghdasarian got up, took him back down. He could score well, I guess, there. So it's weird. Like, this is one of those fights. If you made me pick the fight, I'm taking Baghdasarian, but I'm not going to have much in DFS at all. And I'd probably, if I was 150ing, I'd have more Lutz just at the price tag. And I think that's why people are higher on him, though, because he at least has that path, Madlab, at 7K, where if it is wrestler versus striker, right, he at least has that path where he could dominate on the ground. And if he does, and he wins even a decision at 7K, he could score well. So I think for DFS and for betting, it's two different conversations. Yeah. And that's how I look at it. Like, I wouldn't have much Baghdasarian at all. I'd have more Lutz, if anything, than Baghdasarian.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. We'll get the ownership from Drew. My guess is, Drew, that Lutz might be more popular than Baghdasarian here as a live dog, right? He's only plus 135 or so. Do I have that right?
You do, yeah. Spot on. JSU nailed it. That's basically what it boils down to. So as far as ownership goes, I got Baghdasarian at 18% and Lutz at 22%. So, I mean, there's some caveats there with obviously at 9,200 for a guy that's pretty low compared to the other fighters over 9K. I mean, still, like, he's got a 20% knockout rate in round one, which looks pretty good. But again, like, the way I look at it, I think 18%, I take away that 18% that I would match the field on and throw it on Lutz. And now I'm just under on the fight, but I'm over on Lutz. I think Lutz at
he's thinking about potato chips and shit.
Yeah, I'm getting hungry over here. It's lunchtime over here, man. I think Lutz at 7K makes a lot of sense. And I think that's where, at 21%, you could argue that's a little bit high for the range, but I would say, like, for his implied odds at 7K, dude, that's a pretty strong spot at 7K to save salary. So like I said, I think I'm going to take the 18% that the field will play Baghdasarian. I'll throw that on Lutz, and I'll be lower on the fight, but I'll be high on Lutz.
Love it. That's Lutz, Baghdasarian. We'll keep it moving to, I think, perhaps the most popular fight on this card, Nazim Sadikov and Terrence McKinney. This one, minus 600 to finish inside the distance, something like that. Terrence McKinney, Madlab, has fought 5 times in the UFC for a grand total of 8 minutes of cage time. Obviously, those are the type of fights you want to target one side or the other when it comes to DFS typically. So Sadikov and McKinney, who do you got here, Madlab?
So, with this fight, it's funny because there's always 1 or 2 fights on every card where I call it a mass follow, where like one person comes out and says it and everybody just follows that. And I think this is one of those 2 fights. Everyone's on Terrence. I see a lot of people on Terrence McKinney here as one of the better salary savers on the card, and and one of the better dogs on the card. And I get it to an extent, but the people that are picking him, I ask you to ask yourself, like, why? Like, what? Like, how many paths does this guy actually have? Do I think he's a very athletic fighter? Yes. Do I think he's talented? Yes. He's got all the talent in the world. But I don't care how much talent you have. If you don't have a gas tank, it doesn't matter. When your lungs are on fire, look at Rodolfo Vieira, for instance. This guy is one of the highest pedigree grapplers in the UFC, and my sister could have choked him out that night when he got choked out by Fluffy Hernandez. If you have no gas, you have nothing. You know what I mean? So Terrence McKinney is a guy where he comes out of the gates hot for about 3 minutes, and then he just falls off a cliff and it's over. You really just have to weather a storm with Terrence McKinney. You don't need a shitload of talent after that to beat him after the 3 minutes is over. The thing that I don't like about Terrence McKinney and I like about Sadikov, this is why it really shifted me over to the Sadikov side, is when Sadikov fought Evan Elder, like you saw, he dropped Elder dropped him, but he kept getting up and he was mirroring him. He was kind of following his pattern. He didn't take the foot off the gas. He kept pushing forward. It was like it's really the Serra Longo way of culture in his gym. That's what they do. I mean, these guys are just tough New York guys. when you look at Terrence McKinney, when he fought Bonfim, he did one thing in that fight that literally I came off him until, like me and JSU and Drew, we all talked about before, you got to show me again. This guy showed the ability to mentally check out. When that mouthpiece went flying out of his mouth after the Bonfim fight, you saw it in his face, you saw it in his body language, you saw it everywhere that he kind of just said, I'm going to close my eyes, which he did. I'm going to throw one big haymaker, and if I don't catch him with this shot, I'm done. Like, I'm checking out. And that's exactly what he did. He literally, instead, really good fighters will find a way to get out of that situation, whether moving laterally, whether changing a level, doing something. This guy just buckled, closed his eyes. He dipped his head. He got caught with a knee, and he went out like a light. That shows me when adversity hit him. Now, you're only goes to your last fight. He could prove me wrong here. But when adversity hits him, he kind of mentally checks out. So for me, I don't know why everyone is so high on McKinney. I know McKinney's got that great athletic ability. He's got good wrestling. He's got great power. He comes in sometimes like a bat out of hell. But if he doesn't get Sadikov out of there in the first couple minutes, Sadikov is probably going to end up running away with this fight. So for me, my pick here is Sadikov. I like Sadikov by knockout, either in the second or third round. McKinney's got that inside shot, I think, in the first round. But people seem to be very high on him in this fight, and I really don't see why.
The reason is just because of the salaries and because McKinney has a good chance to finish inside the distance. I think people that are like doing, making DFS lineups, I'm not sure they're necessarily like breaking down the technical aspects of the tape like you are, Madlab. They're just seeing McKinney as a value based on numbers, which, I mean, no offense, Drew, that's kind of what your method is, right? To look at the implied odds to finish. And you're not trying to figure out who's got the better choke, stuff like that. So it's just a little bit of a different.
Yeah, I don't know about the gas tank on some of these guys. I listen to you and Madlab and JSU for that expertise.
No, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I assume the Vegas guys are semi-smart. So
it's also about windows, no? Like I want a guy who in DFS who has a bigger window. Like his window is shrunk, because he literally only has about 3 minutes to do it. If not, you could throw your ticket away.
Yeah.
But that's why people like this dog, though. Like you said it yourself, like he has the window. So, and he's either finishing or getting finished. That's the other reason.
Oh, so, I get it. I understand. I understand why. Listen, this is a fight you got to target in DraftKings 1,000%. But what I'm saying is I'm saying more of it from a pick perspective. There's a lot of people picking him to win this fight. You know what I mean? So
the other thing too is I think he's more known as a dog than some of these other dogs on this card. So I think that's another thing. People have seen him. He fought Drew Dober. He fought, Matt Frivola. He's fought in, some good guys that people have seen. I mean, that Dober fight was insane. I mean, he knocks him down again, takes him down. And then he still ends up getting finished. Like people remember like his fights, I think, and they remember him as exciting, fun, early action, all that stuff. And I think, obviously that's what gets people more onto the dog they know on these type of cards that we've all said. This card, I mean, there's a reason why we said this card is not that great, right? Like some of these fights, like they're just not. This is a fight for DFS. I think people can get a little excited for because he has that window. And like you said, once that window closes, well, for him, because Nazim's gonna do something bad and it's gonna be over. And I think I agree with you. I think that's what happens. I think he weathers the storm of McKinney, and then McKinney, I don't know about quit. I don't want to go that far, but
I'm not saying he quit. Bro, he mentally checks out. I've been around fighters for a long time. I've cornered fighters, and when they come back to the corner, dude, I know when they check out. They don't even have to talk to me. I could tell it in their eyes. And he checked out in that fight.
Well, that's why I said I don't want to say quit, because I was about to say quit in my head, and I was like, I don't want to say that because it's not like he quit, but checked out is a better word to throw out there. But
JC, I assume you're going to have a lot of exposure both ways on this fight. It sounds like you're Sadikov side, though.
Yeah, I lean more the Sadikov side, just also because, McKinney's going to be very popular too. So that's another way to get a little extra leverage. But I do think this is a fight you want to be invested in. Like there's one or two fights on this card where I will say I'm going to be overweight, very exposed to. This is one of them. And then we'll get to one more where I think you definitely want to target based off the price tags, of the guys, and I think this is one of them, and then we got one more coming up.
Yeah, makes sense. Drew, I'll guess again, McKinney maybe higher projected ownership than Sadikov, but I'm sure both these guys are at least 20% plus.
Yeah, they're really close. I got Sadikov at 27 and McKinney at 28.5. So McKinney a little bit higher owned as a dog than Sadikov. I think that's what we all talked about. McKinney's money line number is plus 130, but his number to win inside round 1 or round 2 is plus 150. So it's almost the same number to win in round 1 or round 2 as his money line number to win the fight. So that's why I think people go to McKinney. Projection wise, they're really within like a couple points. So McKinney gets a bump up in optimizers. So across the board, that's why McKinney's going to get as much ownership as he does, even though his money line number is low. So yeah, not much to say else besides what JSU says. So I'll keep it short. This is a fantastic fight to target. Both are going to be around 27, 28%. So you can kind of pick a side if you want, or you can try to, match the field with the fight, the overall fight exposure. But I'll lean Sadikov. I think he'll actually be a little bit under-owned possibly at 8,700 than McKinney, which is what we talked about. But McKinney's just a super solid salary saver with upside. But I think Sadikov's going to be interesting if he does come out and win in round 1 or round 2.
Yeah, makes sense. My point earlier is I think people just picking McKinney because he fits into their DFS lineups. That's the reason they're picking him, not because of any
it's not like an outright pick. It's just like picking a lineup construction pick.
It's just obviously one of the better DFS plays if the numbers are right, from the money line and to finish inside the distance, all that stuff. But we'll move on to the main card, such as it is. Norma Dumont sitting around minus 140 over Chelsea Chandler. 2 fighters. Yeah, I guess Chandler's just had the one fight in the UFC. She did win that one. But what do you see between Dumont and Chandler, Madlab?
Yeah, so when you look at this fight, it's interesting because, from a technical perspective, Norma Dumont's the better fighter. I mean, Chandler reminds me of like a lower level, like Felicia Spencer, like a Tanya Evinger. Like she's not athletically, she's athletically impaired. You know what I mean? This is a girl who literally just marches forward. She's got big power. She trusts in her power. And if she doesn't get the shot on you, what she'll do is she'll make you pummel drill with her. She'll clinch you against the cage. She'll be a bully in there, and she'll literally make you pummel your way out. You'll be jockeying position. So that scares me a little bit from a DFS perspective because I could see certain parts of this fight literally ending up on the cage where these girls are just kind of lobbying for position. But there is a window, almost like the fight with we just talked about. There is a window for Chandler to possibly catch her with something big because she does have big power. But, I do like Norma Dumont as, from a pick perspective here. I just think she's more technically sound. I think she's the sharper fighter. Did you guys see the weigh-ins? Did you see what happened during the weigh-ins?
I didn't.
In the back? Well, they ended up getting into
they were talking, right? There was a little
I don't know what the hell that was even about. I don't know, like, if she said something to Norma before that or Norma was just – I have no idea. But they got to a little
all I saw was Norma start, like, saying stuff as she's kind of walking away, and then – they started like getting closer, and then people just kind of got in front of them and, grabbed them and started moving them away. But Norma was saying some interesting things.
Yeah, I didn't understand. So. I was like, I didn't even think it was being translated right. I was like, what the hell is she even saying?
I don't even understand why she would be saying what some of the stuff she was saying. So maybe there's some history that no one really knows about that.
Yeah, it was like really corny trash talk. But listen, when you look at Chandler, she came in, she beat Storylenko. Storylenko, you're supposed to beat her. This is a girl she's supposed to be. She's 1-4 in the UFC. There's nothing good about Storylenko. How this girl is still on the roster, I don't even know. So I can't really take much out of that sample size. But like I said, with Chandler, she's got that upside to land that big haymaker shot. She's a bully in there, and if you concede to that, she's going to, have her way with you. But I just don't see her being the bully in here with Norma Dumont. I think that she's going to be able to, technically kind of outclass her in this fight. I think she has her in majority all spots outside of the power. I don't see this fight going to, ending inside the distance. I see it going to the cards. I see why people like Chandler because, like you guys said in the earlier fight, she does have that bullish way about her. But from a pick perspective, I'm definitely going Norma Dumont there, and I'm actually pretty confident in it.
Yeah, it makes sense, and she's not a huge favorite, so maybe the Dumont money line makes some sense. You can get it at minus 135. I'm seeing as the best line out there currently. Let's throw it over to you, JSU, Dumont, and Chandler. Dumont, even in her wins, hasn't scored particularly well for DFS. So interested to hear your thoughts here.
Yeah, lower on this fight for DFS. I do think I'm with Madlab though. I'm pretty confident in Dumont just as the technical, much better fighter overall, and who she's fought too. I think that's what's going to be, and I think she's going to be able to kind of stay away from the power, because that's really what Chandler's going to be looking for, hunting for. She plots forward, whatever. But I think Norma's going to be able to kind of pick her apart. And she's just a little better, in those spots where I don't think Chelsea's going to be able to hang with her. So I think Dumont by decision. Feel very confident in it too. For DFS, I'm under on this fight because, outside of Chandler catching her, which I mean, if she does, I guess she could score really well. If she knocks her out, but. I think Dumont decision probably doesn't score that great at 8,400. And I see other people, in that price range, 8,400, 87, 82, where they could score a lot better. So I'm under on Dumont in DFS.
Makes sense. Yeah. I'm kind of leaning toward fading this fight for the most part as well. Drew, what do you got? Dumont and Chandler.
Yeah, this is like a little mini, the McKinney fight from the last one. We got Dumont at 18% and Chandler at 24%. I'm gonna probably just skip out on this fight. It doesn't look great for DFS. I will say Chandler's inside the distance number is a lot better than Chandler. So I don't know why, how that even computes, because it's through every single round, round 1, round 2, round 3. She has a better chance of finishing than Dumont, but Dumont still has the better money line number. But Chandler at 24% and 18% for Dumont. I'll just go ahead and X out this fight, and I'll save about 42% against the field. So, yeah, I do not like this fight.
Yeah, betting against the early finish in women's fights seems like a good thing to do in general, and that's essentially what you're doing if you fade this fight. So that does make sense for me, Drew, from a DFS perspective. We'll move on to the next fight. Jung Park minus 150 over Albert Duraev. Back to you, Madlab. What do you see between these two?
Yeah, this is an interesting fight. This is another fight that it's just a matchup thing for me. It's you look at Jung Park. I think he's grossly underrated. I think a lot of people kind of overlook this guy. This guy's made me some good money in the past. It's not easy to come in, and I know the level of competition that he's for isn't that great. You know what I mean? But the dude is good. Like the dude is like sneaky good. You know what I mean? But there are matchups that can give anybody issues. And the thing that bothers me, why a lot of people are kind of pigeonholing on him in this fight, and Drew, I know he's probably going to be one. I know earlier in the week he was one of the highest guys on my projection model. Now I think he's like sitting probably in the top 6, right? Am I right?
Talking about Park for ownership?
Park, yeah.
Yeah.
He's sitting about top 6 right now. So he's getting a lot of love. And I think a lot of that, they're looking at Duraev's record. They're looking at 16-4. 4 of them are by way of knockout. But what people don't understand is the last knockout against Joaquin Buckley, that was a doctor stoppage. He was not knocked out. Before that, he got knocked out in 2014. So people are still looking at that 4. I don't go past a certain amount of fights, and I can give a shit less about the last 2 knockouts before those 2 knockouts. So it's like, is he really chinny? Is that what people are looking at? They're saying, well, Park can finish him, and I don't think he's chinny at all. The thing that I will say about Duraev is if he gets his wrestling going, if he could really chain it together, I think that's where he does have the advantage. He's a much more position before submission. He's not a guy that's like a high-flying submission artist where he's going to lose position, and Park's going to be able to really scramble and get back to his feet or maybe transition him to top control. I think Duraev's a guy that if he does secure, he's a guy, he's going to lace up your legs. He's got that Dagestani style, like BC level Dagestani style handcuffing ability, and I think he's my pick here. I know a lot of people are on Park. I know a lot of people are super confident on Park, but I like Duraev a lot, and I'm going to be on him a little bit heavier than everyone else in DraftKings.
You think Duraev has a chance to finish inside the distance, Madlab?
Park is tough, dude. Park is tough, and you know what the thing about him is? Like he has these even though some of them are minimalist, he has answers everywhere. Like this guy does have some kind of answer for every position you put him in. So I don't know. I think if Duraev wins this fight, it's going to be a really more of a positional battle.
Makes sense. JSU, will start to you for Park and Duraev.
Yeah, I mean, before I get the pick, that Buckley fight, there was some stuff going on before it. Obviously, they had issues, but his eye was shut. Like the doctor stoppage, his eye was literally shut. Right, that was why they stopped it. I'm pretty sure. Like he literally could not see out of one eye, and they had to stop the fight. Like it's not like he got, KO'd cold, just dropped. So like this dude is tough. You know what I mean? And I do feel like for DFS, I actually like Duraev in this fight to win. I think the best way for him is decision where he's got takedowns and control, which I think is how he gets it done. And at 7,700, I'm going to be over on the field where it feels like a lot of people in that price range are going to different guys. I'm going to be over on him, and I think that'll be a little different for DFS as well, and I see a little upside. What annoys me about him, though, sometimes is he'll instead of fighting the fight he should fight, he will sometimes get sucked into fighting just the other fight that with the other guys. Like the Kopylov fight was one where I'm watching it, and you watch that third round, and you're just like, what are you doing? Just go with what you dominated with the first two rounds. Just keep going with it. And, he is a tough guy, and that's why he'll bang with you a little bit. But sometimes he doesn't always go to his advantage. And when you see that in fighters, you see that a lot in some fighters where they all want to bang a little bit. They all want to stand and bang, even though they have a route to where they're better. They all want to kind of show sometimes that they have a well-rounded background. And I think that's what Duraev does. That honestly gets them into trouble sometimes. So I think that's where I worry a little bit. But from a DFS side, I do see upside in 7,700, and I'm higher on him than Park at 8,500. So I'm going to be heavier here on Duraev.
Drew, 2 for 2 here on Duraev with JSU and Madlab. What do you got, Duraev and Park?
Yeah, Park, I got him at 29% owned, and Duraev at 19% owned. So honestly, I think with the pricing, this is just a fight I'm going to have to include. I'll just be lower on it overall, but I do like Duraev at 40. He's implied to win 41% of the time. 7,700 for him. Sub 20% owned. I do like that for a good chunk of lineups. But like I said, I think this is just a good fight to include in your builds. You're not getting any leverage spots on this. They're all pretty fairly owned, I think. But yeah, Duraev at 7,700 is a fun little filler if you're trying to go into the 7K range and not try to eat too much chalk, which we'll talk about here in a second. The highest owned is just below him. So I'll side with Duraev as well.
All right, let's move on to the next fight. Coin flip fight here by the money line. Francisco Prado and Otman Azaitar. This one, like I said, could go either way, at least in terms of the money line, but a big favorite to finish inside the distance. So certainly an important fight to get right here for DFS. Madlab, interested to hear your thoughts if you've got a strong lean on this one, because the market is very torn on who's going to win this fight.
Yeah, and it should be. I mean, it's really, DraftKings has this one priced properly, 8,200, 8,000. What I do with, my guys, I always tell them this is the fight, whether the 8,100, 8,100, 82, 8,000, this is like the middle of this sandwich. This is a very important fight. So what I like to do in these situations with my lineups is I like to take the more expensive guy first. I'd like to put him in and make sure I have the cap room to kind of swap him out. So I'll take a handful of my favorite lineups that have them in there, and I'll just kind of swap them out and interchange them. This way, I know one lineup's going to shit the bed, but at least the other one's going to stand firm. I think Azaitar has more upside, in DraftKings just because of that first round. He's got knockout power. Prado is a younger kid. Even though, listen, he lost to Malarkey, but we all know how tough Malarkey is, and Prado really only has more room to climb. The younger you are, the more you absorb information, and you can improve a lot more. Azaitar, there's a lot of things going around, with him. Sometimes he's active, sometimes he's not active, but the kid, to me, right now, as it stands right now, he's got the more upside for a quicker finish. So I'm leaning Azaitar a little bit more as far as from where I'm a rostering perspective. But this is an interchangeable fight, I call it. This is a fight where you guys roster your favorite handful. If you're not doing hand builds, if you're doing you're optimizing stuff, take a few hand builds, build your 5 favorite lineups, and kind of interchange them. Make sure you have those lineups in with both of these guys in, because like I said, this is a fight that I'm torn on. But from a DraftKings perspective, I do think Azadar holds a little bit more value.
Yeah, that all makes sense. Prado just turned 22, so one of the youngest fighters on the UFC roster, JSU. He did lose that first one. Probably a fight that the UFC hoped he would win, right? An undefeated young prospect coming in. They usually kind of want to back those guys. And kind of a tough test for him, I think, here coming off that loss for the youngster. So interested to hear your thoughts. I think this is a really interesting fight. Just from a UFC perspective in general, but obviously from a DFS one as well. So your thoughts, JSU?
Yeah, I mean, the kid was like 21 years old going into that fight. So, he's obviously still growing. I think when you watch that fight, he struggled with the range. I mean, that was clear as day. Jamie Mullarkey had the range advantage, and he struggled because there were some, left hooks where you could see he was missing by a big amount, and he has power. Like, he clearly has power, but he was struggling with that range in that fight. Whereas I don't think he's going to struggle as much here. Jamie Mullarkey was taller than him a little bit, had more of the range. They're a little, Azadar and him are closer in height. He's a little taller. Range, Azadar has him by a little bit, but still, it's a lot closer than Mullarkey and him. So I think it's going to be easier for him to get into that pocket, exchange, get out. He's quick. This is a fight for DFS I want to be all in on pretty much. Like Madlab said, this is one of those fights where you want, I think, the winner, because I think the winner is going to score well. For me, though, I think Prado has a good chance to win this fight. He's the guy I'm picking. That left hook is dangerous, man, and we've seen Azadar get dropped by it. We saw it in the last fight. Prado has a real good chance here, but I think both these guys have a great early finish chance here, which is why for DFS, like Madlab said, interchange pieces, definitely want Azadar, you want Prado. You make me pick this fight, though. I'm going to go with the youngster. I think that range was a huge deal in the Jamie Mullarkey fight. And Jamie Mullarkey, he's smart. He knows how to fight those type of fights. First fight there, he gets a second fight. I think this is a little different one. I think it's going to be easier for him to, get those exchanges in his favor and, use it where we saw him, kind of struggle in those striking exchanges to land at times. And I think that's going to be the difference in this fight. But either way, I see it ending inside the distance, and I see it as a great DFS target.
Yeah, me too. Drew, your thoughts here and ownership on Prado and Azadar?
Yeah, great fight to target. Prado at 22% and Azadar at 26%. So the way I look at it, I think Prado is the leverage spot here. I think he's about 6 percentage points. I know it sounds minimal, but he's about 6 percentage points lower than what he should be from an optimal standpoint. And then Azadar is just slightly over the field where it should be. So I'm going to side with Prado. And I think the longer I look at it, I think you're going to get a decent amount of leverage possibly on Prado. And if he wins, obviously, you're going to knock out about 25% of the field. So I think you want exposure to both sides, but like the longer I look at it, I kind of want to just side with one fighter and take my lumps and hopefully come out on top. But I think Prado is the guy I'm going to lean into. I think he's just going to be under-owned, and across the board, he looks like he's got the full package. KO looks good, submission looks decent. I'm going to side with Prado here and try to go overweight the field about 10%.
Fair enough. That's Prado Azadar, a fight that one way or another, people should probably get a decent amount of exposure to. Move on to the co-main event. I think the most exciting fighter on this card, Jack Della Maddalena, 5 straight wins in the UFC, pours on the volume. Frankly, four straight finishes in the first round. He's been, I think, really impressive. Essentially a coin flip, Maddalena is to finish this fight in the first round. Biggest favorite on the card, sitting around -600. Unless you can talk me off of it, Madlab, Maddalena is going to be in most of my lineups. Interested to hear your thoughts on him and his opponent, Basil Hafez.
Yeah, Maddalena, I mean, if you really look at his DraftKings, he's a DraftKings savant. I mean, the guy scores 100 points every time he's on the board. The problem I do have with this fight is not that if he's going to win the fight, but let's face it, styles make matchups, right? And styles make fights. And Hafez, I'm very well aware who Hafez is before this fight was signed. CFFC guy, very, very tough. He comes from that Philly school, and the problem with him is he going to lose this fight and is he going to get finished? Yeah, he's going to. The problem is I think he has the chops and he has a style to get out of the first round. He's got a very heavy press wrestling style. This guy will resort to the wrestling. I think he understands, like, listen, I don't have, he missed weight. Obviously, this is a short notice fight for him. So I think he can do enough to maybe pose JDM, and I love JDM, but he'll pose him a little bit problems like in the first round with his wrestling where you could freeze JDM a little bit, take a couple shots. JDM's got to kind of use his range, use his space, use the real estate of the cage to kind of keep away from him. Eventually, he's going to gas out, and eventually JDM's going to lose him in translation and knock him out. But I do fear a little bit that it does get out of the first round. I still think he covers. But when you're rostering someone at 9,700, you're kind of hoping it's either going to be a fucking straight out 15-minute shelling, or he's going to knock him out or submit him in the first round. I just don't know if he does. I think Chavez has enough to get out of the first round because of his style, and that's what's going to probably pull me back a little bit on JDM now.
Makes sense. JC, your thoughts here, Madalena and Hafez?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree exactly with what Madlab's saying with, the wrestling, the grappling. That's where he wants to go, obviously. He's not as great standing. Madalena definitely has the advantage there. The jab is going to be key. His jab's awesome. But I don't know. For DFS, is this one of those fights where we talked about it last week, the Bo Nickel fight, before that with the Burrito fight? Is this just a guy you say, man, I'm going to take my win and the probably 100 points or plus whatever it is? Because I think he's going to finish Hafez, whether it's in the first or second round, and he's going to put some volume up. The question is just, can he, kind of stall that? Can Hafez stall that with the possibility of the wrestling, with maybe getting him up against the cage, grappling with him, wrestling, maybe getting this down? Because Hafez is even dangerous, like off his back too. You see him throw up triangles and stuff. He's finished that way. He's just someone where it's clear where he wants that fight to go. And so as long as, Madalena doesn't try and fight his fight, I think it's a clear advantage for him. And there's a finish at some point. So I think it's a fight I might just, say I'm just going to play Madalena and, fade Hafez. And I'm just going to probably, I don't know about lock, but I'm going to be over the field, whatever that is. I mean, Drew can tell me right now. But he's got
that's what I'm doing, JC.
50%, 40%.
Yeah, 45.
I'm kind of treating Madalena as a bit of a free square myself on this card. Makes for a good pairing for me with Tyson Nam, and then you can kind of mix and match with some of these other fights. That'll be my approach. But your thoughts here, Drew, on 45% Madalena, so highest owned fighter on the card. But I think for good reason. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's very similar to the Bo Nickel fight, probably more so dramatic this week than last week with all the good inside the distance numbers. But I think honestly the raw points just matter so much. Obviously round one is preferable. Round two will be slightly worse, but I do think he finishes in round one. And at 9,700, I think there's enough dogs that are going to have some upsets that Madalena is going to be necessary in an optimal build this week. So yeah, I think definitely going overweight Madalena is the way to go. Hafez, he's going to be 5% owned. You could probably just scratch that out. I mean, unless you're building 150 and you want to throw in one lineup, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. So Madalena will be my pick, and I think he is a bit of a free square. It's just such a big drop off as you go into the low nines. There's not you're not really fighting over inside the distance numbers like we talked about last week. So Madalena, jam them in as much as you can, play some dogs with them, and should have a good week.
All right, let's get to the main event. Certainly an uninspiring main event from where I'm sitting. Holly Holm, Mayra Bueno Silva. Everybody knows Holly Holm by now. I personally don't really enjoy watching her fight too much, grinding up against the cage. I kind of expect more of the same. Madlab, but your thoughts, Holly Holm and Bueno Silva?
Yeah, this fight is interesting, but because when you look at Holly Holm, a lot of people only recognize her for around the Rousey knockout. That's where people's memory.
She doesn't even fight that way anymore. Is the funny part.
Well, but I'm saying that's where people's memory bank starts with her, right there. Where that's totally false. She was an 18-time world champion in boxing. She was Ring Magazine Boxer of the Year. This girl came from an extremely high-level boxing pedigree. Since then, obviously, we know what she's done in her career. She's got a switch on her. She either comes in and she has some kind of animosity towards you where she brings that pacing back and forth when they do the intro into the cage, or sometimes she can mentally break. I've seen her mentally break before where she just kind of like packed it up and sent it off. But at 41 years old, you guys, there's a genetic code involved with the human anatomy, bro. And JSU, your wife and you can attest to this too, owning a gym. But this is a girl who's genetically, listen, Father Time gets anybody, but she's unflawed. I mean, this girl still looks like she did when she was 31 years old. She takes very good care of her body. She's got very good top control. She's evolved her game. She's very smart in the cage. Is she boring? Yeah, she's boring. But the fact of the matter is the name of the game is winning fights. As long as she's winning fights, that's really all that fucking matters. And when you look at Silva's, she can be nasty. Silva can be nasty in there, but I just don't think she has anything for Holm there. When you're looking at the problem here with Holly Holm at 8,600 and how boring she is, and she grinds right against the cage, you also got to remember now you're getting 5 rounds with her. And I do see a world where Holly Holm can finish her in the championship rounds at some point in time if she's really getting what she wants. If she gets that side control that she's so good at, if she starts dropping some big shots and stuff like that, there is a world where she can finish her in the distance. Even if she doesn't, I think at $8,600, I think she's an okay. I think she's a safer play to cover if she wins. So I'm going to be a little overexposed to Holly Holm here. Even though, like I said, you don't know what you're going to get from her. You don't know if she's going to hit that switch or not. Sometimes she's just really boring and you just want to shut your TV off. But I just think this is a spot for her at 41 years old. She's not a normal 41-year-old. She's a great athlete. She's got much more cage IQ than Bona Silva in there. I think Bona Silva's path to victory is there. She's got to come out like a bull in the china shop. She's got to try to throw a wrench in the mix. I just don't think she could do that with somebody as seasoned as Holm. So I like Holm in this spot. I know she's going to get some love and ownership, but I think Bona Silva is going to do as well. But I think she's okay at 8,600. I think people are going to back off her a little bit because she is boring. But I think 5 rounds you're kind of safe with a win.
Yeah, my initial reaction was kind of to back off here, but Holm in these last few fights, JSU, a lot of takedowns, a lot of control time, and with 5 rounds, if she's able to impose that type of style, finish or not, she's probably going to score pretty well. So your thoughts on Holm and Silva?
Yeah. So my question back to Madlab is this question that I've been wondering. So we've seen her in her last few fights. You've seen the takedowns more, right? She's a winner. And when everyone talks about the style in which she fights to win, however that style needs to be fought, that's how she fights. Do you think she fears more of the takedowns against Bueno Silva with the fact that Bueno Silva is dangerous even off her back and the submissions and stuff, or does she still go that way?
She's going that. Listen, as you get older, bro, like as you get older, people look at these guys and girls like they're superheroes because they see them on TV. But dude, she still has taken damage in her life. She's still a 41-year-old, where she's looking for the safer paths. She's been there with every kind of style, dude. But she's not going in there against Bona Silva where she's like, oh my God, well, this is a style I haven't seen before. I mean, she's been in there against far better grapplers, better strikers, better wrestlers. She's been there against anybody. There's nothing she hasn't seen. You know what I mean? So she's not going to be afraid to take her down and jump on side control where she's very good. She's got very good side control game. She's going to attack the fight wherever it goes, and I think that she's going to have the edge wherever it goes. Outside of maybe her hips getting loose in a spot or two, and Bona Silva, can maybe throw something up, or maybe Bona Silva does throw with some heat. I think Bona Silva called. What did she call? She called a 5th round knockout. I think Silva called in this fight. I think she did. I think she publicly came out and said 5th round knockout, and Holly Holm said it's nice to dream. Like you don't want to put that fire under Holm. That's the type of fight where she gets up for.
So that's good though. So from a DraftKings perspective, then, if she's still gonna get some takedowns, she's gonna get that control time in a win, even if it goes 5 rounds.
She's cover.
Probably gonna score pretty well at that price tag. So
I think so.
I do think that's the way it goes, where she wins a decision. And if she wins a decision, she's going to put up 100 plus, I think, in a win with the volume, the cage control time on the ground, takedowns. So for me, I'm going to be over on Holly because I do think she wins this by decision. And boring or not, I want the girl who's going to score. And to me, I think Holly's going to be the one that scores here in a win, 5-round decision win.
To me, it's the 2 extra rounds here that are so key for Holly Holm. If this was a 3-round fight, I would be off it. But I think those 2 extra rounds are going to be enough to get her across the finish line. Your thoughts here, Drew? What do you got for ownership between Holm and Silva?
Yeah, I got Holm at 38% and Buena Silva at 31%.
Yeah,
I think it's pretty fair. I think it's fairly priced. I think the ownership is fair. I don't know. I'm a little more interested in Silva here, and it just seems like there's a path on the ground. I don't know. I know Holm's durable, but I don't know. As a dog, 7,600 for Buena Silva. I kind of lean that way, and maybe 110 points is enough to be optimal at 8,600. But there's some other decent fighters above her that I still kind of want to target. So I might be lower on Holm here than it sounds like you guys are, and might be a little bit higher on Silva. But it's a fair fight. It's a fair ownership, fair pricing. It'll be a fun one, I think, actually, for the last fight of the night.
For sure. All right, that'll do it for this show, UFC Fight Night, July 15th, Holm versus Silva. That's all 13 fights. Thanks for tuning in. As always, guys, we do appreciate it. If you haven't yet, hit the like button on your way out. And if you do want Madlab's projections, all of our picks, playbook, and all other sports, we do have a promo code SUMMER33 over at runpuresports.com to sign up for your first monthly or weekly package. That'll do it. We'll be back same time next week. Thanks for tuning in. As always, for Madlab, for JSU, for Red Kachik, I am Draft Cheat, and we'll check you next time.